determined on making a grand marriage. She'd had her trustees draw up a list of the neediest young, titled gentlemen in England. She'd studied it carefully and picked the Marquis of Ashart. Since then, she'd visited his country seat and been approved by the Dowager. Her trustees were even now negotiating with Ashart's lawyers, drawing up marriage settlements. It was all settled barring the formal proposal and the signatures. He couldn't marry someone else. He needed her money, and he was her key to her acceptance into the world of the aristocracy. What should she do? Her instinct was to shrink away from so many unfriendly eyes, but she would not be a coward. She stepped forward and curtsied to the old lady. "I'm glad you've arrived, Lady Ashart. I haven't known what to do. As you know, Ashart is already promised to me." Silence fell, and it was as if a chilly draught brushed Damaris's neck, a faint warning that perhaps she'd just made a terrible mistake. She glanced around, painfully aware of being an outsider. She had no blood connection to the Malorans, and was here only because her guardian was Lord Henry Maloran. She came from a simple family, and she didn't know the rules of this world. Had she broken an important one? Part of her wanted to run away and hide, but she wouldn't, could not. Let Genova Smith steal Ashart from under her nose? Beautiful blonde Miss Smith broke the tense silence. "You must be mistaken, Miss Myddleton." "Of course she is," Ash snapped. That brought hot, angry blood to Damaris's face and fire to her courage. "How could I be mistaken about that?" She swung to the Dowager. "Is it not true?" It seemed as if all the listeners held their breaths. Lady Ashart fixed cold eyes on her grandson. "Yes," she said, "it is." Damaris swung triumphantly to the Marquis, but before she could demand an apology, Miss Smith reacted. "You rancid fish!" she yelled at him. "Scum on the sewer of life!" Then she ran into the breakfast room and returned to throw food at him. Damaris watched, as aghast as everyone else, but inclined to cheer Miss Smith on. She'd like to hurl some stewed fruit at the wretch herself. But then Ashart went onto one knee, stained, messy, but still gorgeous. "Sweet Jenny, forgiving Jenny, redoubtable Jenny. Marry me. I love you. Jenny, I adore you." "No!" Damaris screamed, her voice clashing with the Dowager's bellow of "Ashart!" Damaris ran forward in a rage, but strong hands snared her from behind. "Don't," a man said softly in her ear. "You'll only make it worse." Fitzroger, Ashart's friend, who'd pestered her over the past days, preventing her from staying as close to Ashart as she'd wished. And look what had come of it. She struggled, but was relentlessly drawn back out of the crowd, farther away from Ashart. Then she heard Genova Smith say, "Yes, Ash, beloved, I'll marry you." "No!" Damaris screamed. "He's mine!" A hand came over her mouth, and then another pressed at her neck. Everything went black. Damaris came to her swimming senses to realize that she was being carried upstairs. Carried by Fitzroger. She couldn't find the will to protest, for behind her she heard chatter and laughter. Oh God, she'd lost Ashart. But worse than that, everyone was laughing at her. She'd mortified herself in front of the people she'd tried so hard to impress, among whom she'd hoped to belong. Now they were laughing at that silly Miss Myddleton, who thought her wealth could buy her a place among them. Miss Myddleton, daughter and heiress of a man who, after all, had been little better than a pirate. She was placed on her bed, and could hear her maid Maisie's anxious, questioning voice. She kept her eyes closed, as if that might change everything, make everything right. Someone raised her and put a glass to her lips. She recognized the smell, laudanum. She hated opium and its lingering effect.